So, welcome to Carleton for those first-year students. And I know that some of you aren't first-year students, so welcome back to Carleton. How about that? So if you haven't noticed, this is a CUTV course, so there is a cameraman. And if you say anything, it will pick you up. And I do call down volunteers every once in a while, and you can be on TV. Yes, you can be on TV. So that's fun. I know for me it's different. I've been teaching CUTV courses for a year now. And they had me come back to CUTV, and it makes me more aware of what I say and what I can use too in class. Anyway, copyright issues galore that I don't really have to deal with so much in the classroom. But because we're going to be rebroadcast tomorrow night on Rogers, there is that aspect to it. There's my mic. I hear the echo. Okay. All right. So a little bit about me and the course. You've come to Survey of Accounting, so hopefully you've come to the right course if that's what you've registered for. That's what I'm doing here. My name is Patty Prue. I'm the instructor. So I've been teaching at Carleton part-time, full-time for the last 4 years. Prior to that, I'd taken a bit of a break, but I was a sessional lecturer before that. Also taught at Algonquin College throughout all the 90s. So lots of teaching. And teaching undergraduates, also teaching in a certificate program. So this is not new to me. I also have a few day jobs, actually. So this is what I do on Thursday, but on other days of the week, I am the financial controller of the Canadian Horticultural Council, and that's part-time. And I also picked up another part-time job recently. I am the manager of finance for the Agricultural Institute of Canada. So, so we've got regular bookkeepers for those jobs, but they need a controller to come in, an accountant, you know, to prepare financial statements and do some more higher-level type accounting type stuff. So that's what I do in the rest of my life. I am a certified management accountant, which means I prefer managerial accounting over financial accounting, which probably means nothing to you at this point. So what this course is, though, it'll introduce you to both of those disciplines, financial and managerial accounting. So I can tell you I much preferred managerial than financial, and tax and audit, all those other stuff. Yeah, I've lived in Ottawa for about 20 years now. Married, I've got 3 kids. I've got a yappy dog. Does anybody have a yappy dog? Yes, I got a little yappy dog. Yaps at everybody who comes by the house. She's a little mutt. And yeah, I've got 3 daughters too, eh? My poor husband. So, that's a bit about me. Yeah, I'm not from Ottawa actually. When I say I've lived here 20 years, I used to live in Montreal, and my hometown, long time ago, was Cornwall. Anybody from Cornwall? Come on, there's always one. No? Okay, from the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. No. So that's anywhere from Alexandria to Winchester. No. Nobody's admitting this. All right. So is everybody from Ottawa then? Put up your hands if you're from Ottawa. It's always, okay, yeah, I want to get to know a little bit more about you too. So yeah, it usually works out to about that. About half of you guys are from Ottawa. The rest of you are from away. So if you're not from Ottawa, are you from Ontario then? Yeah, okay. Anybody not from Ontario? There's always a few. Yeah, okay, so welcome to Ontario as well. Wow. Any international students? We always get a mixing of those in there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm getting to know a little bit more about you. All right, first-year students. How many first-year students do we have? Yeah, it's always about half. And the rest of you are other. Second, third, fourth. I know I've got a few special students who, for whatever reason, wanted to learn more about accounting. All right. Any art students here? I know I talked to a few art students. I know that Cynthia is an art student, and Naomi is an art student. Anybody else? Yeah, there's a few. Computer science students, I know there are 2. Oh, there's more. Okay, and get to know each other. You're both in second year, by the way. Yeah, okay. All right, and please try to get to know other people. I know this is a course that appeals to a broad spectrum of students, so you're not just all from the same faculty, but get to know each other, because you just never know. You can't come to class, you want to get notes, or you want to develop a little study group. That happens. I hear that discussion board on WebCT every now and again about, oh, let's get together and study for that midterm or that final or whatnot. And the only way you're going to do that is if you get to know some people, right? So, and working on assignments. There will be weekly assignments. So, you know, having friends to help you through that. I don't mind that because all the assignments are unique, all right? The numbers are randomly generated, so your assignment will be different from your friends. So if you want to help each other out, that's fine. That's for the, if learning is going to occur that way, that's great, all right? So yeah, get to know each other, all right? So some of you are sitting beside each other, get to know each other. Say hello, introduce yourselves. This is a good way to develop some ties to the university, at the very least, all right? All right, so you know a little bit about me. I know a little bit about you. What have you signed up for? You've signed up for Survey of Accounting, all right? And it is a CUTV course. I think it's now been officially renamed. Eh? Is it CUOL, CU Online, right? Is it? Do you think so? Yeah, it's CU Online. But looking at the website here, it still refers to CUTV, all right? So this is how to access your lectures. And I realize that, yes, there's some people who will be watching exclusively from home, and others of you will come in here. But if you miss your lecture for whatever reason and you registered in this in-class session, you can find a way to watch me later on. So for in-class, first priority for in-class seating always goes to the in-class section. However, if there is room in a class after the first few weeks, CUTV students may sit in on lectures. And I can tell you there is. I think the room capacity here is 300. There's only 130 actually registered in the in-class session here. So more than enough space. And honestly, I think people get more out of the in-class section. Cable TV broadcast. All right, so if you are a subscriber to Rogers Cable, okay, you can go to the CUTV channel, channel 243. I guess it is part of the basic package, free of charge. This class will be broadcast Friday evenings. All right, so it's taped now, Thursday mornings at 8:30. I think it's 8 o'clock. I'll have to double check that. All right, so you can access it that way. That's a little bit different. At the same time as you see it broadcast on Rogers, on channel 243, you can go to the website, CUTV website, and you can get the online streaming. All right, so whatever you see on the television is also on the website, okay, carleton.ca/CUTV. All right, so I think there's something there that says watch live. There it is. Okay, so there's the link up at the top.
It is 8 p.m.
What? 8 p.m. Okay, thank you very much. Who you don't see is Jill in the room behind you, and Kevin talks to her. He's got this neat little headset. Anyway, she can hear me, but I can't hear her. Anyway, so. All right, so where are we here? The CUTV webcast. All right, so yeah, it's at the exact same time, so you have to be sitting in front of a computer Friday, 8 o'clock. All right, local students may also use the CUTV Student Center, all right, which is just down the hallway. It's in Loeb. I think it's a D299. Anyway, so as you exit here, turn left, go toward Loeb, turn left again. Right before you go to the Loeb Cafe, turn left. All right, that's the CUTV Student Center. And you can go and see any broadcast, any course at any time, absolutely free in the Student Center. They've got this little viewing kiosk. So between the two sets of doors, lots of computer terminals, access any course you want. That's broadcast. And then we also have video on demand. All right, so for a small fee, students with high-speed internet may view lectures online through WebCT. Now, I notice that link still has to be created. Actually, I'll look into that. Usually they create one right within WebCT. And I think it's $50 will give you unlimited access to any lecture whenever you want, as many times as you want. You want to watch this lecture 5 times? Sure, go ahead. All right, that's VOD. Yeah, and the CUTV Student Center, they also talk about that. Now, what's not mentioned here is that you can rent DVDs only for this term. I think they're discontinuing in the winter term. So if you just wanted to rent Lecture 1 of this course, you can on a DVD. Take it home, bring it back the next day. It's a small charge, all right? And they are also looking into, and I'm not quite sure where this stands to, if you want to subscribe to VOD for just one lecture. Again, just a few dollars charged for that, right? And you have to send an email, I think, to CUTV folks about that, right? So, any questions at all about these lectures or accessing them, just go to the CUTV Student Center, like I said, D299 in Loeb. Right? Actually, I'll click on it. They'll take me there, all right? The viewing on demand, 24 hours a day. That's the interesting thing about that, 7 days a week. There's a kiosk. But then they're also open just regular business hours past this double-sided doors if you want to rent any lectures. Okay, so the DVDs of the lectures may be rented. Okay, that's for a small charge. And you can view the lectures for free. Right. That's also the place, CUTV Student Center is also the place where your exam goes, your midterm goes to, right, for pickup. I guess that's all that I want to mention about how to access video on demand. Right. Any questions so far? Yes.
About how many classes?
How many classes do CUTV? I can give you the whole list somewhere. It's on here, courses. It's not all of them, obviously. Oh, they only have summer. Ooh, click here for a PDF copy. I know, usually the big ones, like economics, psychology. See, there we go. Economics, laws, social work. All right. Fall term courses. I don't know what ARCC stands for. Anyway, professional practice. Biotechnology, you know. So there's a whole lot of varied courses that have an in-class component like this. It's taped, and then you can access it. You know, you could also be a CUTV student, just accessing through video on demand or through television. All right. All right. Any other questions before I continue on? Okay. Very good. All right. So that's how to access the course. You're here, which is good. And I think that's the better way to learn, because you get to stop me and ask questions, all right? And come to see me after class or whatnot. But, you know, for some of you can't make class for whatever reason, it's, you know, CUTV is a great backup resource. Okay. So let me introduce the course now. This is the course outline. I don't make copies available. It's the policy of the School of Business that this just be available online. So I use WebCT, and this is on my WebCT. Okay? So if you're registered for the course, on your WebCT, you're going to see that course listed on your main page. Click on it. You're going to find this course, the outline there. Right? This is a new course, Business 1003. Right? So it's a merging of two previous courses that I've taught, Business 1001 and 1002. And it's quite new territory. We're calling it Survey of Accounting. So it's all the high-level topics of financial accounting, managerial accounting, what we refer to as Business 1001, Business 1002, except it's got one big critical difference. I'm never going to mention debits and credits, right? So this is new territory. This is, however, very similar to a course that I've taught for a certificate program in the Sprott Professional Development Program Division. Right? So this is not new for me. It is new for the university to offer this course at the undergraduate level. Right? So if you're here in person, you're in Section A. The T, Section T, refers to those people watching on CUTV. Right? So how can you get in touch with me here? So my office is in 2014 Dunton Tower. That's what that means, DT. Right? Preferably, you know, email me if you want a response, okay? Because my office hours are fairly limited here, okay? So I'm going to stay at the university after class from 12 until 1 for office hours, or if you need to make an appointment, that's fine too, all right? But I do work every other day of the week, so it'll have to be before work, at lunch, or after work to have that appointment. The lecture, Thursday mornings. Who decides these times, honestly? 8:30 in the morning. Gosh, it's way too early. Room has now been decided. You're obviously here at St. Southam Hall Theatre B. Broadcast times 8 to 11. All right. Teaching assistants. I do have 2 teaching assistants. They will hold office hours, okay, but probably more closer to the midterm. Right? Midterm is coming up in October, and they do help me with marking. All right. That's how I use teaching assistants, and they will moderate the discussion board on my WebCT. I like that. Okay, course description, yeah, Introduction to Accounting Information. Actually, I got this from the course calendar, and I'm sure you can read, and I'm sure you read the course description before you signed up, but this is what you signed up for. Okay? It's a little bit of financial statements, okay? And that's what we mean by financial accounting, the preparation of financial statements, and then managerial accounting, right, which is more focused on decision-making, planning, controlling. Heavy reliance is placed on problem solving? Yes. All right, I do solve an awful lot of problems from the textbook here in class, right? Because that's how we learn accounting, all right? We don't just read and talk about it and, you know, debate the merits of the double entry accounting system. That's not how we learn it. We actually learn it by doing, right? So that is the true secret of success in any accounting course, including this one. Is do as many problems as you possibly can. Okay? Web page. Yes, I make extensive use of WebCT, okay, and CUTV to post course materials, exam results, and other announcements. Okay. So those of you who don't know how to get to WebCT because you're new to the university, here is your carleton.ca page. All right. There's the link for WebCT. All right. Obviously, if you're in second, third, and fourth year, you know this already. So you'll get this page, Carleton's Learning Management System. And you're asked to log in. Okay. Do I want to display the night? Yes. Okay. The username and password, I believe, is the same as your Connect. Everybody familiar with their Connect email? Okay. It would have been mailed to you, I think, is how they do it. So, I don't know. I've never been a student here, so I don't know how they do it. Okay. So I'm going to put in my username and password. No. So if you've registered for this course will now appear on your next page. Okay. If you're teaching this course also appears on this page. All right. So I get a list of courses that I've ever taught. Anyway. So I put this course up here at the top. Right? So all the courses that you've ever registered for, if you're in fourth year, you probably have quite a list. All right. It's right here. Oh, run. Okay. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to show you what I've posted so far. Student view. All right, so there you go. Right? Not a lot on there. I only started putting stuff together. It's been a very busy summer. All right, so the course outline, if you want a copy of that, I do not print it, but it is here. Okay, just click on it. All right. I also post my PowerPoint slides and all the problems that I take up in class, and I always do 2, 3, 4, 5 problems in every class. And with CUTV courses, what I do, because I've got overhead camera, is anything I write down on these pages, I scan, I PDF them, and I put them on my WebCT. Right, so you've got that. This is the main page, but if we go here over to the left, there are also other links. Right? Announcements, if I make any announcements, that'll be there. I do maintain a calendar, so important dates. I haven't put anything in it yet, but there will be something in there. A discussion board, this is kind of interesting. Right? So if you've got any question about the course material and you want to talk to other students or maybe get an answer from the TA, okay, because I'm going to have the TA and myself too, I also moderate this a fair bit, post a question here on the discussion board. So very much like other discussion boards that you might have been part of for whatever reason. And I've just set up topics by chapter. So any questions at all and any chapter specific questions, put it here. Anything else can go there. Right, under general. There's been nothing posted yet. Anyway. Learning modules. Yeah, that's just my course slides. There we go, PowerPoint slides. An interesting thing here too is grades. Okay, the grade book. What is that mean? All right, so my grades, as the midterm mark becomes available, it'll be posted here. All right, right now there's nothing. There's nothing here. There are weekly assignments, but I won't be posting them here on this WebCT. You'll be able to access that through the online quizzing platform, okay, that website. Great. So that is WebCT. Now, I use WebCT. It's not to say that other instructors are using that as well. So those of you in first year have never seen this before. I'm using it. Not all of your instructors will. Not all of them will post their slides. I like to put PowerPoint slides up there. Rather than you writing furiously all of everything that I say, I like that to be accessible. Okay, so all that to say, I will make extensive use of WebCT. Okay. All right, next up, the textbook. Here it is. All right, so yeah, it's an overhead camera. It's so cool. I love this classroom. It's an American textbook, so it does have references to American type things, and you'll notice I won't mention anything about limited liability companies or FASB or anything. No. So any American sort of content I just take out and I substitute back in with Canadian content. All right. So Survey of Accounting, it's brand new, 5th edition, it's published this year, 2010, just became available over the summer. You will also need something called a CNOW account or a Cengage Now account. It's published by Southwestern Cengage Learning, and they have this online platform, online quizzing platform called CNOW. Right? If you go to the bookstore, okay, you're going to see this packaged. It's going to be in shrink wrap. It's packaged with a key for CNOW. Right? So now, who already got the textbook? A few of you. Okay. The publisher emailed me yesterday. He said, "Hi Patty, sorry to fill up my inbox," because he sent me a whole lot of emails. I was in the bookstore this morning and noticed that the survey bundle we created was selling for a ridiculous regular price. It was ridiculously priced, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. No one should have to pay this much for a textbook. Because I had told the publisher, I said, I don't want anybody to pay over, it was going to be $200 for the textbook? Yeah. Ridiculous. I had him come down, and I had 2 publishers going, you know, you have to do that. You have to say, give me a better price than that. So you tell one publisher, can you make it this price? It should be really $124.95. Okay? So, yes. So he says, luckily, we caught this before classes start. Also, if any students have already purchased a textbook, the bookstore will be issuing refunds. Just wanted to keep you in the loop. $124.95. That includes the CNOW. Okay? So, anyway. Yeah, I had it down to 2 textbooks. And price was important to me, all right? Because I don't know why. I guess Americans pay more for their textbooks. Like they just took the list price. Oh yeah, $247, $247. Ridiculous. I said we don't pay that here. Nobody pays that amount for a textbook. So bring it down. So it should be $124.95. All right, and it's all shrink wrapped with a key for CNOW. And I'm going to have the publishing rep give me more instructions on how to use that CNOW because it's not working for me anyway, as a student and registering as a student. All right, so I'll give you more information about how to register for your CNOW account, okay, next week, once I get that. There is the website. That's how you actually get into CNOW, but you also get some other, oh, I can use this. Oh, I like this. All right. There also is a website, okay. This is to access CNOW, but there's also other things that you can access here. I think they give you access to certain check figures, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, and just fun stuff, accounting crosswords, flashcards. Okay, so there are other things there on the website for you to take a look at. All right. And that's just to support your learning, okay, which is good. Grading scheme, that's on the next page. All right, so online quizzes I've mentioned, that's that CNOW or Cengage Now, or sometimes it's called Cengage Brain or something. You're going to see a lot of different names for it. There are weekly quizzes. They don't start yet. I don't open it up till registration closes. So for this term, registration closes Wednesday, September 22nd. That's when the first quiz becomes available. Right? And you'll be given a whole week to do it. Okay, so to the following Wednesday, September the 29th, will be your first quiz. Okay. It gives you lots of time to do it. If you're sick, no worries. You know, you can do it from home. And generally people aren't sick for more than a week. So, you know, no excuses that way. And it's fairly intuitive and interactive. There's drop-down menus. And you get more than 1 attempt. I'm going to give everybody 3 attempts, all right, with immediate feedback. Okay. Purpose of the quizzes is just to learn accounting, to do it. Okay. Remember I told you the key in this class, as is with many accounting classes, is to do it. That's what the quizzes are coaxing you to do. All right. For most people, like I've taught this course using very similar scheme, very similar course using very similar scheme. The quizzes are, oh goodness, just a given. Anyway, I'm going to erase that. Yeah, they're 20 marks. They're easy. All right, and they're forcing you to do like weekly quizzes. Right? So the only reason why nobody would get close to 20, like most people get 18 or 19 here, is if they don't actually attempt any quizzes. Okay? Just go in and attempt it. All right? They're not long. I don't want to have you do hours and hours of accounting work every week. A little bit is good. Ideally, I'd like you to finish it, within half an hour to an hour. But it keeps you on track, all right? So that they're building blocks that one chapter leads to another, and by forcing you to do a few problems every week, keeps you on track in the course. There is a midterm, and I'm waiting at 30%. Okay. And the final exam is worth 50%. The final exam is during the regular exam period. Okay, so those of you who are new to Carleton, what does that mean? There's a few weeks in December set aside just for final exams. Okay, and they're held all over campus. And that exam schedule comes out at the end of October, I believe. Don't plan your trip home yet, okay, until you know your final exam schedule. All right? Do not book that ticket. All right? For those of you not from Ontario and are flying home. All right? Don't book anything. All right. Online quizzing, 20% of overall grade. They begin the week of the 27th. Actually, I'm opening up on the 22nd. They're due each Wednesday at midnight. Previous terms, I've had this due on Sunday. And guess when most people do the quiz? Sunday. Yeah, no, Sunday night. If anything is due midnight, all right? People are doing it at 11 o'clock and emailing me like you wouldn't believe. And I'm not up Sunday at 11 or 11:30, so I can't answer your question. So I thought Wednesday would be a little bit better. I'm most likely checking email on Wednesday. I tend not to check my email as much on weekends. Weekdays, certainly, get back to you right away, not weekends. And so, I'm changing it to Wednesday. There'll be 9 quizzes, all right? I'm going to take your best 8, all right? So get that. Every quiz, you get 3 attempts, all right? And at the end of the day, I'm going to take your best 8 out of those 9.
So you can technically skip one.
Yeah, exactly. Something comes up, and that's what's going to happen. It's not so bad now, okay? But as the term creeps on and you've got other courses, remember, for all of you, this is an elective, right? So, you're taking this, just to learn a little bit more about accounting. But if your other work is piling up in your major, all right, generally, this course seems to slip a little bit, right? And it's really hard to manage time, okay? And that actually is, to me, one of the most critical things that we've got to learn at university. It's going to determine our success is time management, right? So you've got a lot of deadlines coming at you, right? And I'm giving you a weekly quiz, and you're like, oh, I can't do it this week, all right? And that's to take that into account, okay? Yes, that happens. So I'll take the best 8 out of 9. I'll drop your worst mark, okay, is what I'm going to do. And there will be no quiz during the week of the midterm, just to give you a little bit of breathing room there. So the week of October 25th. So exam, I've already scheduled the midterm exam, okay? Midterm will be held Friday, October 29th at 7 p.m., right? So they reserve Friday night and all of the weekend for midterm exams for CUTV courses. Right? So that's just the nature of the beast. And I happen to choose Friday, October 29th. So you've got plenty of advance notice now. Okay? If you're working part-time, I know there's always a good percentage of you that are. Ask for that day off, or that evening off anyway, so that you can write it. Don't come to me the night before and say, oh, I've been scheduled to work tomorrow night. I can't make your midterm. Sorry. Can't make alternative arrangements. The only excuse for not making this midterm is actually, and the final exam, is that you're sick, and it can be documented with a doctor's note, or there's a death in the family. Okay, so giving you plenty of warning. Tell your employers, I can't work Friday, October 29th in the evening. Okay. And it will cover all the material in the financial accounting portion of the textbook. All right? So there are 2 real halves to this textbook. The first half is financial accounting. The second half is managerial, and so I'm going to be testing you in financial accounting. Final exam will be held in the exam period. Like I mentioned, that period of time at the end of the term in December, it'll cover the whole course, although it will be more heavily weighted toward the second half, right? Just to make every chapter even in the grading scheme. To pass the course, you need to get 45% on the final exam and at least 50% overall in the course. There we go. Failure to write the midterm or failure to earn at least 40% in the quizzes and the midterm combined will result in a grade of FND. That's a funny one. It means failure, no deferral. that refuses the privilege of writing a deferred exam. That above condition applies only if such a student misses the final exam. Okay, so you're absent for the final exam, which can happen because you're sick or there's a death in the family. You can go to the registrar's office, apply for a deferral, but you will only be granted one if you meet those conditions. Okay, so you need to earn at least 40% in the quizzes and the midterm combined. Okay, then we'll let you write the deferral. If you're failing up until that point, you got less than 40% combined in your quizzes and midterm, you missed the final exam. You want to apply for a deferral. I'm entering in a grade of FND, failure no deferral. And it does happen. Okay, so the only valid excuse, I've mentioned this, for missing the midterm is medical reasons or death in the family, must be documented. All other reasons, such as travel, like, oh, I booked my flight home already on December the 8th. You know, I can't make your final exam. It will not be considered. So there'll be no makeup test. So if you do miss the exam for medical reason, the grade weighting corresponding to the test that was missed will be added to the grade weighting of the final exam. So what I mean here is the midterm specifically. Review problems. To do well in this class, as with any other accounting course, it is necessary to work out as many problems as you can. Have I mentioned that already? Did I say do problems? I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it a lot. Do the problems. Do lots of problems. Don't just redo what I do in class. Ideally, I'd like you to actually do the problems before coming to class. But work out review problems in the textbook. At the end of every chapter, there is a comprehensive problem that you can work on that covers most of the objectives in the textbook. It's wonderful. There it is. Illustrative problems. Okay. So every chapter has got one of these big problems, right? And it covers many objectives, and it gives you a detailed solution. All right. So, and how did they calculate everything? Right? Try those out too. All right. Great review problems. I will be giving some limited solutions to some problems I feel are really good. I'm going to be generating homework lists saying, hey, this is a really good one. Try this one out. And I will post that solution on WebCT. There are also other supports in this class. One of them is PASS, and I'm going to have Dave Byrne talk about that just a little bit later. And he'll conduct sessions of review, just going over the material, doing problems in groups. They're peer-assisted study sessions. Eh? PASS? Okay, I got it. All right. All right, so please attempt the demonstration problems at the end of every text. You should also expect to spend 7 to 10 hours a week on this course, meaning read it, okay, and do the problems that I'm doing in class. Go to PASS, it's also good, and do the online quizzes. Okay. I will not cover everything in all of the chapters, okay, but I will spend time on what I think is most important. And there's the course schedule. It might look like this, it might not. All right, I hope today to get through chapters 1 and 2, but I don't know, we'll see. And next week, you know, we're looking at a chapter a week, sometimes 2, because I'm not covering all of chapter 5. I'm not covering this American thing called Sarbanes-Oxley, but I am interested in internal control and cash. So yeah, 1 chapter or so a week, and that's it. And you get to the final exam period, which this term is December 9th to 22nd. I don't know when your final exam is going to be. I just know it's somewhere between December 9th and the 22nd. Okay? Nobody knows until Scheduling Examination Services posts the exam schedule. Okay. Now, these other paragraphs that have been inserted into my course outline were inserted by the School of Business. Okay? So it's important additional information. Required calculator in business course examinations. So a number of years ago, the School of Business said for business courses, everybody should have this calculator. And now I realize that you're taking this as an elective, and I don't want you necessarily to buy this calculator. I do expect you to have a calculator for your midterm, for your final exam, okay? But I ask that it not be programmable. That's my only condition. You don't need this one, okay? This Texas Instrument BA2+, all right? Please don't go and buy a new one, okay? You got a calculator, great. However, any engineers and computer scientists in here? Yeah, okay. you generally have very big calculators with a whole lot of funny capacity. And I've seen some with USB ports that connect to a keyboard. And not allowed. Okay? Basic calculators, yes. If you've got one of these already, great. All right? There's a sharp one. I don't mind either because I know it can't store stuff. All right? And if I see anything that I'm not exactly sure of, I do come equipped to midterms and final exams with a slew of calculators I've gotten from Zellers that can add, subtract, divide, multiply. And I will swap out your calculator. I will temporarily borrow yours and give you one of my basic ones if I'm not sure about it. There was a question? No? About a calculator? All right. So, yeah, you engineers and computer scientists, I've seen really big ones. Anyway, don't want to see that. Rent textbooks? Yeah. I didn't know it was on the rent textbook program. It is brand new. Yeah. I think you can buy the C now separately. And I will have more instructions on how to actually register for that in next week's class. All right. Yeah, and I think eventually, like next term, that exact same thing is going to come up. People want to rent, or they've got a used textbook now. There shouldn't be any used textbooks right now. It's brand new. It's the first time we've taught the course, first time use the textbook. But I understand there is a way of getting just the CNOW account. Yeah. But the rented ones shouldn't. I didn't think I'd be part of that program just yet. Anyway, is anybody renting the textbook? No? It's a new program in the bookstore. So first years, I know this is all new to you, but second, third, and fourth, yeah, you can now rent a textbook. Okay, so no need to get this calculator. Get a basic one that I can look at and say, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no alphanumeric storage in there or programming going on. All right. Business students, definitely. We emphasize that rule. Only this calculator. Right? Right, Dave? Dave is a business student.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Everybody should know.
Yeah. I bought a car this summer, okay? And so my husband, who's also an accountant, says, how much would our payments be? And I said, I can do that. I've got my fancy business calculator. I could calculate my payments for my new car. All right. Anyway, it's got some built-in finance programming, which I think is great. It's already in there. All right, there is no group work in this course. I mean, you feel free, as I mentioned earlier, to work in groups. Okay, I don't mind if you consult together on solving your assignment problems, only because they are unique to you and the attempt. You want to attempt that assignment 3 times, you're going to get 3 different versions of the numbers. That's great. Medical certificate, yes, please use the certificate form here that the registrar's office has posted online. Academic accommodation, I guess I should spend some time on that. All right, so you may need special arrangements to meet your academic obligations during the term because of disability, pregnancy, religious obligations. Okay? So please review the course outline promptly and write to me with any requests for academic accommodation during the first 2 weeks of class. Specifically the disability ones, okay? Actually, you're not going to go through me. You're going to go to the Paul Menton Center, PMC Center, okay? So if you've got any disability whatsoever, you're, ADD and you need some extra time to write the midterm or the final exam, go see the folks at the Paul Menton Center. They'll assess your case and let me know what sort of accommodation I should be giving you, okay? Is that extra time? Is it a quiet room, all right? And it's not just for those people that we see are physically disabled, although we do accommodate those people as well, scribes and note takers and that sort of thing. But it's any disability whatsoever, learning disabilities included. All right. So please go see the Paul Menton Center sooner rather than later, because we do have to book extra rooms and proctors for your accommodation. Okay. And if I can get this earlier rather than later, don't come to me on October the 28th and say, oh, I've got a learning disability. I need some accommodation. What can you do for me, Patty? Not much at this point, okay? Go see the Paul Menton Center. Talk to an advisor. They'll look at your documentation and tell me what sort of accommodation I should be making. All right. Oh, yeah, so go see the Paul Menton Center, essentially, for a formal evaluation. So and that includes sensory disabilities, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, chronic medical conditions. All right, and that's how you contact them. I think you can also just go to their office. Is it the 5th floor, the 4th floor of the Uni Center? Okay. show up. Religious observance. Of course, I realize Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, didn't matter what date I choose, somebody will need religious accommodation. So I realize that now. If that applies to you, please see me. Okay, I'll make that accommodation separately. Okay. Just because of religious holidays are Friday night to Sunday for most religious groups. Pregnancy, you can read that. Academic integrity, yes. Summarizing or copying from another person's work without identifying the name of the original thinker is called cheating, right? So, cite doesn't really apply to this course. I'm not going to have you write an essay, but copying from somebody else, definitely. A midterm on a final. All right, so there's our important dates. Fall classes are starting today. Welcome. The last date for registration is the 22nd, so people coming in and out decide by the 22nd, please. And that's when, like I say, the first quiz will open up. The actual last date of withdrawal, it's being pushed further and further all the time. Where is it? Last date, degree program. Oh, I can't see it. Last day for exams, last day to submit, last day for receipt. Anyway. There's a final withdrawal date. How come it's not listed here? Anyway, I don't put these in here. Last day for the receipt for... Does anybody know where it is? It's in September. No, no. The withdrawal date's always in October and November. December 6th? Oh, my goodness. It is. That, like I say, it keeps going later and later. Whoa. Last date of academic withdrawal for volunteer courses. Okay, so what does that mean? You get to the end of the course, essentially now, and you can say, well, I didn't enjoy that, and I'm not going to do well in the final. I'm skipping out. I'm withdrawing from this course. Wow, that's amazing. I was told it was being pushed out and pushed out. It used to have until October, November, but right now it's the end of the course. That's something. So keep that in mind. And that's without any academic penalty, right? If you say, okay, well, I think I'll try to write the final exam, and you don't do so well, and you're going to get an F, that's going to be part of your CGPA, right? And for a lot of you, you care about your marks, right? So you don't want a 0 in your calculation of your CGPA, right? Most people care about their course, their CGPA, all right? To say there are some people who obviously don't, and they always confound me. Anyway, yeah, wow, last date of academic withdrawal from fall term courses. So, you know, if the course doesn't go as planned for whatever reason, all right, you've got to the end of the term to withdraw without any academic penalty. Wow. Great. That's amazing. There is this little review period, December 7th and 8th, where no classes will take place. And I'm looking at somehow doing a review class. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to my TAs, figure something out there. And then there's a final exam period, okay, from the 9th to the 22nd, including Saturdays, too. And then the university is closed. And they always get asked the question, when do I get my final mark? All right, I am obligated 10 calendar days after the final exam to post it on Carleton Central, and only the final grade, all right? So I generally don't post final exam marks on WebCT, right? And I don't post final marks on WebCT either. Your final mark in the course will be posted on Carleton Central after I've submitted it and it's been approved by my dean, all right? So those things have to happen first, right? Now, then after they're posted, I always get these questions, and tell me how you would answer that, especially if you've been to Carleton before. Okay, so I see, Patty, you gave me a C+, but that's really not what I need to continue on in my scholarship. I need an A-. Can you switch that? So, okay, if you're the instructor, what do you say to a student who would like me to arbitrarily change their mark to an A- just because? All right, so I'm going to tell you now, because I end up repeating this many times at the end of December. There are plenty of opportunities for marks in this course, okay? There are weekly assignments, okay? So 20% of your mark, easy, easy, easy 20 marks, okay? From just attempting the assignments, right? Fantastic way to get marks. So marks to get there. There's marks from the midterm, And keep up on the exam, the chapter material, and you're well prepared for the midterm, all right? In the midterm, I don't do it with curves in it and trying to flunk everybody. No, I just want you to have learned something. They're very similar. The questions will be very similar to the problems taken up in class, very similar to past sessions. Like, we're not trying to trick you here. We just want you to learn accounting. So, fairly straightforward. And then, of course, there's preparation you'll have to do for the final exam. Okay? But I think a good, honest effort on your part guarantees success, right? And that's what I found about university throughout the years is, okay, you all come here, you're all wonderfully intelligent people, okay? You made it to university. And some people say, well, what will guarantee my success now that I'm here? And I have to say, intelligence is good, but you're all intelligent. It's work habits and time management skills, okay? So, some people say impulse control too. But, you're given a whole lot of work, all right? And, you want to be social, you have a part-time job, you got all these competing interests, and how are you going to manage to do all your coursework? Well, it's through time management and organization, okay? Just organizing yourself, which at times can be really hectic, okay? I'm not going to lie to you. There are times throughout the term where you're going to be, oh my gosh, it's crazy, but I've got this and I've got that due and a term paper here and whatnot. But in accounting, you just keep at it a little bit every week, okay? Read the chapter, do the problems, right? Do the online quizzes, go to PASS, and I'll have Dave talk about that soon enough. You will get a great mark, all right? Typically, this is the first time I've taught this course, but I'm sure the marks are going to play out the same as they did for 1001 and 1002. 20%, 25% of the students will get A's, 15% get B's. The average ends up C-ish, C minus to C plus, maybe even a B minus. I've seen that sometimes, okay? And a whole lot of people, say, but it was so hard, I couldn't do well. Yes, it can be done though. Okay, it's absolutely, 40% will get B's and A's, all right, and the rest are congregated around the C's, and unfortunately a fair number of people below the C's, the D's and F's, and I don't like to see that. I'm disappointed when I see that as well. It's going to take some effort on your part, okay? I can only do so much here as a lecturer. Okay, I'm not going to, I'm speaking to first years. It's not going to be like high school where I assign work and I'm going to make sure that you've completed it, all right? I'm going to leave that up to you to have the discipline, okay, to do the problems in advance of the class, or at least redo those problems, to find the time to do the online quizzes, right? And I'm sure all of you can do this, no problem. All right, so that's the course outline. Any questions whatsoever? Yes. Pardon me? Yeah, it went into. Goodness. Let's get to work. Okay, so Tufan's been in my class. He asked me, do I take breaks? Which I did because that was the evening class, eh? Then nobody came back after the break. Did you notice that? No. You left. You left at the break. Yes, you did. Did he come back after you? Do you remember Tufan from? Dave would remember. Dave was in that class.
He was back every time.
Yeah, oh yeah. Okay. So I know, excellent. So it's a 3-hour class that is really long, okay? And I was warned by somebody, if we're doing a 3-hour class, they're not going to come back after the break, just keep going. Yeah, and then you get CUTV. Oh yeah, and don't rely on CUTV also. This is what happens too, is that some of you will say, oh, it's so early, Thursday, 8:30, and I'm not going to come today, and I'll watch the lecture later, and then next week happens, oh, I'll watch the lecture later, and you end up watching like 5 weeks of lectures in like a day. Don't do that, that will not guarantee success. So, anyway, but come to class every week, or at least watch the lecture if you're watching on this CUTV, and keep that effort up every week, all right? So, I was thinking this term actually of taking breaks in the morning. I generally wouldn't do this, all right? But taking breaks about halfway through the class for about 15 minutes, go get a coffee, come back, get me a coffee, come back, and then finishing up the rest of the lecture later on. So I don't want to break just yet, but just so you know, I will have a break. It would be something I'd like to do. The other thing I'd like to mention, these are just housekeeping things. Cell phones, right? We all have them in variations, whatever, iPhone, smartphone, BlackBerry. Keep it on vibrate, right? And yes, I know there's a lot of you that are texting or, you know, you even have your laptops and you're doing whatever with them. Although, is there wireless in here? Oh, okay. Maybe back there. And maybe that's why they're back there. It's because it's wireless.
Over the counter.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't mind laptops, you know, it facilitates learning great, you know, writing down notes, all right? I come from an era, very long time ago, where you didn't have computers in class and you actually took notes, and, you know, if this helps you, fantastic, because I know the craziness that goes on just writing notes down. So yeah, you feel free to use your laptop. Cell phones, as long as they're on vibrate. Please don't interrupt the rest of the class. And I don't appreciate talking to other people while I am lecturing, okay? You know, if you've got a question, put up your hand, please, or talk about whatever you need to talk about at the break. All right. So there are supports in this class. Let me tell you that you're not just all by yourself. And let me just show you something here. The Student Academic Success Center, here we go, has many different things to support your learning, right? So I know if you're in second year above, you probably know all about this. But if you're first year, this is your first class, let me tell you a little bit more. They've got all sorts of things to help your learning, okay? And there we go. There's learning support services. There we go. Thank you. Yes, you do. I'm just going to mention some of the other things that they offer. So learning support services, it's in the 4th floor of the library, not too far from here. They have a number of, you know, effective study skills programs, okay? So they're free 20-minute information sessions. You know, they have a tutor referral service. They've got spaces for you to work in, group study rooms, and also computers for student use. So note-taking, time management, how to write a multiple choice exam, general exam prep, many more sessions that they offer. They also offer peer-assisted study sessions, okay, and we call this PASS, right? That's what PASS. They are free, all right? A lot of things here are free. And they're weekly workshops, okay? So, and they're here to help your success in the undergraduate programs, all right? And so you have a PASS coordinator who has to attend all of my classes. It is Dave Byrne. Now, Dave, did you want to talk a little bit about PASS?
Yes.
Remember, Mike is stand behind the podium.
Hello. Am I loud enough? Too loud?
Perfect.
Good. Hello to all you CUTV people. I'm sure you are very happy watching accounting on a Friday night at 8 o'clock. So my name is Dave Byrne, and I will be your beloved PASS facilitator. PASS, like Patty was saying, stands for Peer Assisted Study Sessions. So half of you are in first year, so those who are second year or later will know about it. What we do in PASS is there are weekly workshops held twice a week. You don't have to go to both, just one. And we have a super exciting time doing accounting problems. Like Patty said, the best way to learn accounting is through practice. And although the quizzes are a great way to force you to, you know, get your marks and practice accounting, what PASS is really helpful for is that we're actually going to take a pencil and paper and practice what is on the exams. About myself, again, my name is Dave. I'm a third-year accounting major. I'm a commerce student. Is there anybody trying to get into BCom? Usually there's a few. Yeah. So this is a course you're definitely going to want to do well in. I've worked with Patty. This will be my third year. I took a course with her in first year, and I supported PASS last year. This is my second year with PASS. And as Tufan will tell you, it is a fantastic program. Right, Tufan?
Yes. Helps you pass.
It helps you pass. Come see me. We're all going to get an A, I promise. I'm not going to talk too much about it because what we need to do is have a vote for when we're going to hold the workshops. And unfortunately, scheduling has not gotten back to me yet. So next week, I'll talk a little bit more about PASS, and we're going to have a vote when we're going to hold our workshops. But otherwise, that was just an introduction. Peer-assisted study sessions. Come see me. We'll have a super fun time, and we'll all get A+ in accounting.
Yeah, bring your blueberries.
No blueberries.
All right, thanks a lot, Dave. That's great. Okay, so that's PASS. So the university, what they're doing is investing in this course. You know, take advantage of it. You know, this is great. Also, you get to meet other people, and you know, that's going to be also critical in your success here. It's just making connections with other students. You know, it's more anonymous than high school, isn't it? Coming to university, especially if you're from Ottawa, you don't get that residence experience. So try to connect with other students. Do it in PASS. All right. And also, statistical evidence has shown that a student's grade can increase as much as 10% if they attend 10 or more PASS sessions. So you know, so good for you. There's that Student Academic Success Center also offers writing tutorial services. So lots of supports. Okay, not just for this class, but for many. All right. So I've covered the course outline. I've covered WebCT. Oh, go back to that. There we go. And what else did I want to know? Oh, before we have to start my lecture, just a little bit about why you should study accounting. All right, let's get into that. Well, like I do all the time, I pull in business papers from the Ottawa Citizen. Okay, so you know, what I hope that you can do at the end of this course is just be able to read the business section and understand the terminology. So this is the Ottawa Citizen from today, Thursday, September 9th. They have a business section. Okay. And there's a lot of terms and vocabulary in here that you may or may not be acquainted with, but I can tell you at the end of this course you will be. Okay. So if I take a look here, there's a little blurb about Transcontinental. Okay. Transcontinental Q3 profit rises. What's profit, first of all? How much money a business has made? How do you calculate it? Well, I'm going to be telling you in this course, but it's revenue less expenses. Okay. So Transcontinental Inc., Canada's biggest commercial printer, right? They publish a lot of magazines and newspapers. Right? A lot of the local newspapers around Ottawa, published by Transcontinental, posted a higher quarterly profit on Wednesday, helped by the performance of its digital and print platforms, it said, and is optimistic about upcoming quarters. Reported net income. Okay, we're going to be talking about that item specifically. What is net income? What financial statement are you going to find it on? We're going to be talking about that. They reported net income of $28.9 million, or 35 cents a share. What's a share? We're going to be talking about that in class. All right. A share actually is a share in the ownership of a company. Okay. It means you're a part owner. You've got to say. And that is up from $25.3 million, or 31 cents a share a year earlier. Excluding items, Transcontinental, which also publishes magazines, community newspapers, and French educational resources, said its adjusted net income is 43 cents a share. So they're taking out some items, probably some extraordinary items or unusual items. Okay, so they're showing you another view of what income could have been. Analysts on average had forecast 39 cents a share. All right. So what is an analyst and why are they forecasting? All right. Actually, this term I'm hoping to get one of those analysts in from BMO Nesbitt Burns. I also hope to get a bank manager in. I'm going to pick on my bank manager. Revenue fell to $500.3 million. Okay, so that's interesting. How can revenue fall from to $500.3 million from it was $504.4 million last year, but yet net income is going up? What's going on? Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about that more in managerial accounting. Okay, degree of operating leverage. Okay, that'll explain that. Okay. CanWest creditor protection has been extended. Okay, there we go. Thank you. All right. So it's been granted. CanWest Global Communications said Wednesday has been granted an extension of creditor protection status. What's a creditor? We're going to learn about that in this course. Okay. It's another company that one company owes money to. Right. So a lot of business done on credit in Canada. Right? We say to one business to another, I'll provide you this good or service, but you can pay me later. Right? Well, unfortunately, CanWest did that a bit too often. Right? And their creditors, not just their supplier creditors, but their banks, okay, they've lent them money. That's a creditor of a business. That amount of money that they owed, their liabilities, got to be too much for them. So what they've filed for protection under a certain act in Canada, it is called the Canada's Companies Creditor Arrangement Act. It's really boring. It's all about what to do when a company has no money to pay the banks and the other suppliers that they owe money to. They applied under that act for protection, because otherwise they'd probably be shut down. Okay, so CanWest Global, imagine that. You watch television, you see CanWest Global, right, on the TV at times, right? So they're into broadcasting. They're in creditor protection, and that status has been extended to November the 5th. The broadcaster has had its protection under Canada Companies Creditor Arrangement Act extended several times since initially being granted protection October 6th of last year. So they've been protected for almost a year, and they've been given another extension. Why? Because CanWest will hope there's this deal underfoot. CanWest has a deal in place to be bought by Shaw Communications. Anybody from the West Coast? BC? Is Shaw Communications big in BC? Yeah, exactly. So they offer telephone out there. What other things does Shaw?
Like Rogers.
Looks like Rogers.
Everything like Rogers.
So anything that Rogers does, right? So they're like a cable company, right? But they're also into telephone, right? Wireless, right? And so they would like to buy CanWest Global. Okay? CanWest Global is, does anybody know a little bit about CanWest Global? Where are they headquartered? No? From Manitoba. What family owns most of the shares? See, this is the world of business. The Aspers? No? Nobody knows. Okay. All right, so before they are bought by Shaw Communications, the Asper family. CRTC has to have hearings on the matter. Okay, so the Canada, the Radio and Telecommunications Commission, okay, they are headquartered here. They're just on the other side of the bridge. Is it Terrasse de la Chaudière? Okay, that's where it's a federal government agency. They have to okay this deal before it can take place. Okay? So if Shaw from the west of Canada wants to buy CanWest Global, the CRTC has to give them the thumbs up. So that's what's happening here. But we're going to talk a bit about liabilities and where they're reported, what financial statement they're on. Okay? This is the sort of thing that you're going to be exposed to in this course. Okay? And just how to interpret, how much liability is too much liability. Okay? We're going to do not just the preparation of a balance sheet, that's where you're going to find it, but a little bit of that interpretation. So if you're the banker, you're the creditor of CanWest, and CanWest says, well, we're running out of money again, can we borrow again? We can take a look at what the balance sheet is trying to tell us as to how much is too much liability. Okay? We know that the more debt you get into, the riskier it becomes, but how can we quantify that? Right? So we're going to take a look at some ratios, okay, to help answer that question. They went over. Somebody lent them way too much money for them to be able to repay, so they're in, it's called creditor protection. Right? So every so often, because we're so close to the States, you hear of Chapter 11, right? That's the American version of the Canada's Companies Creditor Arrangement Act. All right, so lots of business articles here, but what I'm hoping is at the end of the course, you can read it, understand it, and be just a little bit more critical. Okay? What really happened at CanWest? Why would somebody lend them so much money to do this, and why would management do that? That's today's paper, yes. I always have to cite on CUTV exactly where it comes from. So that is today's Ottawa Citizen, Thursday, September 9th, 2010. All right? So, yeah, and on the back end, I'm looking at this, Saputo. Vachon remake a piece of cake for Saputo troubleshooter. All right? So here we've got, it's a Quebec company, Saputo Bakery Inc. All right? And they've got this president and CEO, Lionel Etegui. Anyway, he's actually from France, so that's why I'm having a hard time pronouncing his last name. So shop floor visits in the middle of the night are part of a strategy to freshen up the bakery division that had gone stale. Okay? And this article actually speaks to a little bit more about managerial accounting. Okay? So the first two articles there on the front page dealt more with financial accounting topics, okay? Liabilities, and the income, net income that we were talking about. This has to do more with managerial accounting. Right? So you've got this, this manager, Lionel Etegui, Okay, and he went in the middle of the night to check on his workers, and they're saying, well, that guy's kind of unusual. What sort of president and CEO of a company actually checks on his workers in the middle of the night? He was named 18 months ago to the head of the bakery division of Montreal-based cheesemaker Saputo Inc. Right? So maybe you've seen their name on mozzarella cheese, especially. There hasn't been much idle time since he joined Saputo. The company wanted new blood for a division perceived as having gone stale, and which some would prefer to see sold off. While Saputo Inc.'s dairy and cheese revenue snowballed, increasing more than 50% since 2004 to $5.4 billion. That's just huge. The bakery division has been stagnant. It's always been profitable, but last year's sales of $158 million represented just 2.7% of Saputo's total revenue. So Etienne Gris, now 40, a native of France, had a wide background in the food industry. Okay. So he's not, new to food. And what he did, he says, I run it like I own it. Okay, so he takes ownership, like he feels like part of the organization. We have great brands, but we need to modernize them. That's what he's saying. One of his first calls was to close the smaller of its 2 factories in Quebec City. He also shut down 24 outlets and a network of thrift shops in Ontario and Quebec that for years sold Vachon goods near the end of their shelf life. The measures cut the division's labor force to about 930 employees. So, not really a good story for the employees, but what happened is he was trying to improve efficiency. He ordered packaging makeovers for the full Vachon line, slashed the number of format sizes, okay, and things are looking up. But what he's done is he's taken a decision to close some factories, some outlets, okay, and that's a very same decision rule we're going to look at in the managerial accounting part of this textbook, okay, where we'll be presented with that decision. Should we keep a division open or close it? Okay, should we keep that factory open or close it? Okay, drop a segment, okay, or keep it open. And he was faced exactly with that. But so what went into that thinking? What sort of analysis did he have to do in order to make that decision? Okay? So obviously they need accounting. Managers need accounting information to make decisions. But what is the exact analysis? Right? And so that's what we're going to take a look in this class. Is that exactly? What do we have to do? What's the decision rule? Okay, in order to do that. So I'm hoping at the end of this course you'll have a little bit more appreciation for all that you see and read, okay, about business. Right? And the other thing too about accounting is that you will all be exposed to it at some point in your life if you haven't already been already. Okay? So how many of you, I'm sure all of you are going to say yes, have ever worked anywhere, part-time, full-time? Yeah, see, exactly. You worked for businesses who all used accounting information, or maybe you're even part of the accounting operations. Okay? But accounting has got a lot of information it's giving, not just to its external stakeholders, but their internal stakeholders too, their employees, and to help them make decisions. Okay? And maybe you were already exposed to budgeting, okay, in that business, or maybe someday after graduation you might be a program manager somewhere for the federal government, or wherever you end up being, you'll be exposed to accounting concepts. Okay? So you might be exposed to, like I say, budgeting, but it could also be balance sheets, income statements, right? And you should have an appreciation of what goes into the calculation of net income. Right? Is my division profitable? Or what can we do to be more profitable? You might be asked that. Okay, so computer science students, doing a program. Okay, when does it become profitable? How many do I have to sell in order to break even? How many programs do I have to sell in order to make a target profit? Okay, so lots of uses, right? And just personally too, right? You're going to see, especially in the managerial aspect of things, concepts that you can apply in your daily personal financial life. Okay? And I think everybody should be more financial literate than they are. Definitely. Right. All right, so that's why I think you should study accounting. All right. Okay, I think this is a good time to break because I want to start chapters 1 and 2 now. All right, so we'll break for 15 minutes. So I've got about 9:45 or so. Can we make it 10 o'clock? You'll come back? Right? 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 Okay. Nobody comes back. I'm not going to do breaks. right, I'll ask you to bring your conversations to a close then, please. Great. Well, thank you very much for returning. I was warned, though. Patty, don't hold a break. They'll never come back. But you came back, except for Tufan. He's gone. But he never came back after the break last term either. We're not expecting him to come back. All right, can I ask that you bring your conversations then to a close? Fantastic. Okay, now we're going to get into the meat of the course. And I'm going to do the two small chapters, chapters 1 and 2. One introduces you to accounting. The other one starts to take it a little bit beyond that. So the course is structured into building blocks, by the way. So you can't just read chapter 4 and expect to understand it. You really must read chapters 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Because we do build on the concepts presented in earlier chapters. Right? And that is why it's so critical to stay with the coursework and to do your weekly assignments. It's because if you can understand the concepts from chapter 2, it'll make chapter 3 much easier than had you not looked at chapter 2. Right? So this just sets the stage. Chapter 1, the role of accounting in business. And the neat thing about it is that all businesses require an accountant. Right? My father is also an accountant, which is, I come from a long line of accounting type people. And so when he was working for this company in the 60s, they were closing down, they were winding operations down. And he said, accountants are generally the first ones that are hired and the last ones to go should the company be liquidated or wound down, all right? So he was the last employee. Yeah? Oh yeah, it's everywhere. Okay, and it's not in a specific industry. Every industry needs an accountant, right? So I've made it for myself more of my specialty is in nonprofits, but there's an accountant everywhere, all right? There's accountants at Carleton. There are accountants in all types of businesses. Right? So what we're going to do is just describe, first of all, the types of businesses and business stakeholders. And certainly, like I say, it doesn't matter what form of business, type of business, you have an accountant there. Or accounting types, anywhere from bookkeeper to manager, chief financial officer. We've got accounting types in there. We're going to look at the 3 business activities: financing, investing, operating, introduce those words. And here you're seeing a lot of new vocabulary. And that's what certainly the first few chapters lay down, is just vocabulary. Lots of new terms to get acquainted with. So we'll define accounting, describe its role, and basic financial statements. Okay? And how they interrelate, because they all are related. And then just 8 accounting concepts, okay, that help us determine how we should be reporting on things. Okay? So yeah, as I mentioned, all sorts of businesses, all sorts of industries. Okay? Some of them are service businesses where they offer, I've got a little graphic there, a taxi, a service. Right? It could be professional services, right? So an architect, accountant, a lawyer, right? Even programming. I know there are programmers here because I saw a great big calculator during the break. Oh my gosh, where is that calculator? That was a huge calculator. It was a computer science student showed me this really big calculator. And so oftentimes computer services are in a service business. I mean, we rely at both of my jobs on an IT consultant to come in, troubleshoot. That's a service business. Right? Maybe you've worked for a service business. Right? And they say that is the way of the future for Canada anyway, service businesses, because we are really getting away from manufacturing. Right? So another broad category of business, type of business, is manufacturing. So making something, making a chocolate bar. I've got a graphic there for a chocolate bar. Making cars, right? Building, doing something, making something. That is another broad category of business. And we have merchandising businesses who buy product and resell. Okay, that's a merchandiser, and it could be at the retail level. It could also be at the wholesale level too. So you go to the mall, right? Lots of stores to buy things. Those are merchandising businesses. So they all have the same financial statements essentially, but they take a little bit different form. Right? Service businesses, very simple income statement. Right? Manufacturing business, well, a little bit more complicated, a little bit more calculation there to figure out the cost of that chocolate bar. I can tell you that much. Merchandise business, again, they still have an income statement, right, which is statement of revenues and expenses. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. But, and it's complicated by the fact that you have to calculate the cost of all of the the clothing that you've sold or the goods that you've sold. Right? The objective is the same for most businesses, to earn a profit, okay? Except in the non-profit world, I could say we struggle to break even. All right? So I've made it, like I mentioned earlier, my specialty to be in nonprofits. I've been working in nonprofits, as I mentioned, Horticultural Council, the Agricultural Institute. These are all nonprofits. Prior to that, I worked in a hospital foundation. So, you know, there is business out there where there is no profit motive, that breaking even is their motive. That's what they call it, nonprofit. But you know, we all have the same financial statements at the end of the day. We have, we'll take a look at that as well. All right, and businesses can take all sorts of forms too. Okay? So, getting here at the top, proprietorship. This is generally how businesses start out. Okay? You've got one owner who thinks, wow, that's a great idea. I'm going to start operating a pizzeria, or I'm going to start my own computer gaming company. I want to create computer games. Right? And they come up, they have one great idea, they don't mind a little bit of risk, and they open up a business. Okay? But that business isn't its own entity, okay, legal entity anyway. It's really the owner, okay, for financial tax purposes anyway. And so any capital that is required to start up comes from that owner. Or maybe that owner has found a bank willing to lend him or her a little bit of money. All right? So the proprietor takes a whole lot of risks, essentially. If they get that loan from the bank, they've got to probably secure some of their assets against the loan. Right? So if they have a house or some stocks or whatever, the bank will ask for security, and the owner's got to put his own personal assets on the line. Right? And that's the life of a proprietorship. Right? But they have that risk, but they also have the reward. Right? So they can earn, they have the potential of earning a whole lot of money if the business is successful. Right? And that will depend solely on the proprietor himself or herself. And they might hire specialists to help them with the business. Right? But you know, that liability is a big issue for a proprietor. So perhaps as they get bigger, they might want to consider another form of business. Maybe accepting another person into the business and becoming a partnership. Right? So what is a partnership? Very similar to a proprietorship, except it's more than one person. It's two or more. Right? So you often see accounting firms set up this way, as a partnership. Right? So many partners across Canada, you know, own and operate Deloitte & Touche. Right? That's a big accounting firm, by the way. Or even in, not just in the accounting world, but my brother-in-law has just bought a business as a partnership. Right? So he's going into the restaurant business, and he's got a partner. Right? So both of them have contributed capital. They're also getting some money from EDC, Economic Development Corporation. I don't know what that stands for anymore. To start their own business venture. Right? So they share the risks and the rewards. And I certainly recommend you get a lawyer involved there and hammer out a partnership agreement. My goodness. But liability also, you know, very big. They're securing their own assets against these loans. Where they get away from liability is in a corporation. What is a corporation? It is its own legal entity. It can enter into contracts. It can enter into legal agreements and get loans from banks. Okay, it can raise capital by selling shares. What is that? Okay, so ownership in a corporation, okay, is determined by shares. These pieces of paper, right, which are, you know, certified and, you know, got the stamp and the signature of the person that says you are a part owner of this business. Okay. And so anybody who wants to be part of the owner of the corporation would buy a share certificate. I'm making a fancy one here. A share certificate and say, hey, I'm starting a company, or I'm expanding my company. Hey, would you like to be part owner? Okay, and that company can then sell share certificates to family members or even to the public. Okay, and if that's the case, let's say I wanted you to help me in my business venture. I could go to the public stock exchange, the Toronto Stock Exchange, and say, I've got a whole lot of these shares, I want some more owners, right? And so I want to raise capital this way. That certainly can be done. Companies in Ottawa do this, okay, to gain access to capital. Okay. Some companies never go public. They're a corporation, there's a public, but they're a private corporation, all right? And they can be big too. You don't have to be public to be big. They don't necessarily have to go together. But there are some corporations where these share certificates are just held by one person or a small group of people, or maybe even a family will own the share certificates. Okay. So I think of Lee Valley Tools here in Ottawa. Big Ottawa company in Ottawa, but they're private. You cannot buy a share of Lee Valley Tools on this Toronto Stock Exchange. Okay. So they are what's called a private corporation. Public just means it can be, these shares can be traded, okay, and sold on an exchange. Now, the thing about being a public corporation, you have to make your books, your financial statements public as well. Okay, we can't go up to Leonard Lee of Lee Valley Tools and say, can I take a look at your balance sheet? I'm really interested in that. We'll say, no, you cannot do that. But public companies are obligated. So the Bank of Montreal is a public company. This is their annual report. And let me show you. They have to make their financial statements public. So this is a whole lot of... they have to talk about a whole lot of things here at the beginning. It's called management discussion and analysis. But eventually, you get to the meat of it, and that is their financial statements. So, got a balance sheet, their statement of income or their income statement. That's another one. They have to make these public, right? And they'll generally do this every quarter. This is an annual report, and their financial statements are actually audited, okay, as they have to be. And here's a statement of cash flows. Right? But all of this information, if you're traded on a public exchange, has to be made available to the public. So you can ask for any bank's financial statements, okay, because they are generally public corporations. As an owner, a shareholder of a company, you've got your shiny stock certificate. You have a vote in the matters of the company. Okay. If you want control of a company, you need to have at least 50% plus one of these share certificates generally. It sort of depends on their bylaws, okay, and all of that. But yeah, you get a vote, you get a say in the affairs of the company. You will also get something called a dividend. Okay, so it's part of the net income. Dividend. It entitles you to a dividend if they're declared. They might not necessarily be declared. Okay. So that is a corporation. Okay. So how do you decide what form of business you'd like to have? Ease of formation, certainly something to consider. Right? So it's very easy to form a proprietorship. Okay? You just have to put out a shingle and say, okay, I'm in the IT consulting business now. Okay. Phone me, advertise a little bit, and complied with your municipal bylaws about running a business in what maybe in your home or whatnot. But it's fairly easy, okay, to do that sort of thing. Ability to raise capital. Oh wait, let me go back. Ease of formation for a partnership. I'd say, like I say, go see a lawyer, hammer out a partnership agreement. Who's going to contribute what? How are you going to split the profits? Okay, these are very big things to decide before you start your partnership. Corporation, much harder to actually form, right? You have to be incorporated under legislation, and there's legislation. If you want to incorporate under the laws of Ontario, there's an act, a provincial act for that. If you want to incorporate under the laws of Canada, there's another act for that. Right? And you have to go see Industry Canada in that case and apply to be a company. Because you're actually becoming, the company is a separate legal entity. Okay? So Corporations Canada wants to know about that. Corporations Canada is part of Industry Canada. And they're going to want to make sure that you comply with all aspects of that Canada Corporations Act. Okay? And they're going to want to check your bylaws, right? And they're going to have you prepare an annual return every year. Who are your directors and officers? So you have to keep minutes. You have to have meetings, shareholder meetings, keep minutes indefinitely. right? So not so easy to form a corporation. It can be done. Okay. Ability to raise capital, that is also something to consider. If you're a proprietor or a partnership, okay, you can, ask your partners, the owner, for more money. Okay. You can ask a bank for more money, and the bank is going to look for some collateral somewhere for that loan to raise capital. And they'll probably ask you to secure your business assets or your own personal assets. So think of it, do you want to really have your house in jeopardy all the time, or any of your assets, your stock portfolio, or your RSP, or whatever it is? Becomes risky, right? And you can lose it all. If your business fails, you're going to lose these assets that are secured against the loan. So there's risk. There's also reward. You get all the profits later on too. As a corporation, some would say, yeah, it could be easier to raise capital, especially if you go public. But still, the public's going to have to believe in your business if they're going to buy one of your shiny new share certificates here. Right? So you're going to have a good business plan at the end of the day. Legal liability, that's something to consider. You're a partner or a proprietor, it's all yours, right? This is exactly why my dad got out of business. He got tired of risking everything all the time. With a corporation, the most that you could ever lose is the amount of money you paid for that share. Okay, so in the case of CanWest, they're not going to go after the shareholders' personal assets, okay, and because they're having trouble. No, they're just going to go to the business assets. Taxation, if you're a proprietor or a partner, all the income is taxed in your hands at your own personal tax rate. And with a corporation, it's got some favorable tax laws, especially Canadian, how does it, CCPCs? Canadian Controlled Private, I can't think of it. Corporation, yes. So they have some favorable tax status. As long as you don't take the money out as a dividend, it's generally more favorable tax rate. Limitation on life, that's another thing to consider. Proprietorship and a partnership lasts just as long as the owners do. Corporation can last indefinitely, right? It doesn't matter if a shareholder passes away, the company continues. So, we've got lots of forms of businesses, types of businesses, and they all require financial information at the end of the day, okay? Their users require financial information, okay? And who are some of the users of financial information for all of these businesses? One of them is the investors, okay? The shareholders, mentioned them already, the people who've got these share certificates to say, I am part owner of the Bank of Montreal, or whatever company. Or the owners, that partner or that proprietor. Okay? They're going to want to know certain financial things about the company. Right? So let's say you are that shareholder of the Bank of Montreal. You've reviewed their financial statements and their forecasts. You've gone through their annual report, and you say, I'm going to buy a share. You buy a share of the Bank of Montreal. Right? What sort of financial information are you interested in? What do you need to know about them? Imagine that. You've got your own stock certificate, share certificate of Bank of Montreal. What sort of information are you interested in now of the Bank of Montreal? Yeah? Yeah, have they been successful? And by and large, when people say have they been successful, they want to look at their income statement, okay, and say, is that adequate? Is that a good return on my investment, on the assets of the company? Yeah, certainly. So what we call that interest is they're interested in profitability of the company. Okay? They want to know that they're going to be around for a while, they're financially stable, okay? That they've got some assets to back up their liabilities. They're interested in that, but less so. What about suppliers or creditors of a company? What sort of financial information are they interested in? Sorry, no? Sorry, the quality of the earnings? Yeah, certainly. Is it from all unusual items? Is it from recurring business? Do they have perhaps the cash flow to pay me back? Right? So creditors, supplier, we talked about that when we were looking at the CanWest article. They're owed money, okay, from this business. So one of Bank of Montreal's suppliers. They want to know the quality of earnings. Do they have enough earnings from regular sources of operating activities so that they can pay me back? Certainly. Anything else? Do they have enough cash to pay me back? Okay. Imagine you lent $5 to a friend, okay, for lunch after class. You go uni center, you're going to have lunch, and your friend says, "Oh, I don't have any money." Okay. Before you become a supplier or creditor of your friend, you're going to want to know that they can pay you back, right? Imagine if they asked you for $10,000. Would you give it to them? No. But if you did, you'd want to make sure, do they have enough cash to pay me back? But maybe if they don't have cash, do they have other assets? Or do they have ongoing business, a regular operating business that they can pay me back out of cash flow? Right? Certainly. That is their number one concern, payback. Customers are also interested in the financial affairs of a business. Why would that be? Price? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And will they be around in the future to continue to supply me for whatever I need? Okay. Yeah, I've got this graphic of a little lemonade stand. Every year my daughter has a little lemonade stand out, my youngest daughter, for our neighborhood garage sale. And so I told her, you know, even you're a little small business. You've got users of your financial information who want to know about your business, right? All right. And she's got one of her sisters that's an employee. So the employee or the manager of the business also wants to know about the business. And why is that, the financial affairs of the business? Why is that? What sort of information do they need? The revenue? Yeah. Are they going to continue to have sales so that they can pay me? Right? The wages? Benefits? Yeah, do they have enough resources to be able to pay a benefit plan? Certainly. Yeah. So, you know, not unlike you as employees, you all mentioned, put up your hand, many of you put up your hand, say yes, you had worked for a business at some point in your life. And you've got an interest in the financial affairs of that business as well. Okay? Are you going to work for somebody who has a hard time paying your payroll, your check, your paycheck? Probably not, right? If they can't do that, it's a good time to leave. Right? And government agencies also very interested in the financial affairs of a business, right? So CRA, right, is interested in, you know, the sales of a company. They want to know, are they getting enough GST and HST remitted to them? What about payroll remittances, et cetera? All right. So these are all of our decision makers needing financial information to make their decisions. Okay. So here's a manager of a business here. Okay. Anybody know who this is? It's Victor Newman. Yes. He's got many different activities going on. Okay. So Victor Newman is from Young and the Restless. Does anybody watch Young and the Restless? Okay. Nobody's going to admit to watching Young and the Restless except for Marie. Okay. Who else watches it? Okay, so we've got two people and me. I watch it too. So Victor here, he's got many different activities going on. One of them is financing activities. He's a multinational corporation, apparently, Newman Enterprises. If he's going to continue to grow and get larger, he's going to need to finance his expansion. Okay, and generally he takes over other companies. He does some shady business deals in Japan and all sorts of things. Anyway, he might have to borrow from a third party. So he might have to go to a bank, right? And that is a financing activity. Or he might also be investing, getting investors into the business, shareholders, investing more money into Newman Enterprises. Right? He also has got investing activities. And when I say investing activities, we're really concerned here with assets, acquiring more assets. Okay? Equipment and cars and trucks and buildings and land and acquiring more assets that way. Computers, tangible and intangible, meaning one has substance and the other one doesn't. So intangible assets, patents, trademarks, goodwill, copyrights, okay? Things you can't touch. Right? And a lot of intellectual property falls under intangible assets. Right? And so he's doing that all the time, investing into more companies. And then he's got his regular operating activities, and I can't figure out what that is. I've been watching Young and the Restless for a long time, and I don't know what his regular operating activities are. He seems just to be acquiring businesses, anyway. And what that is that his regular line of business. Okay, how does he make a sale, and what expenses does he have to make that sale? Okay, that is normal operating activities. All right. What is the objective of financial accounting? It's to answer all those information needs, essentially, of all of those stakeholders. Okay? Providing information, reports, financial statements to stakeholders about the economic activities and condition of a business. Right? So that we can get back to the shareholder and give them enough information to know should they buy more shares or perhaps sell their shares. To get to, information to a supplier or the bank, somebody who's owed money from the business, so that they can decide should they call the loan or should they lend them more money. All right? They need financial information, and this is the objective of financial accounting. Employees need information. If the union asks for more benefits, can the company pay for it? And essentially, it's just summarizing the financial performance of the firm for external users. Right. Sounds all great. What are we measuring, though? Okay. So we're measuring the financial condition at various points in time. Now it could be, today, September the 9th, 2010. We're going to take a snapshot, of all of the assets, all the things that are of use to the business. Okay. The financial condition, we're going to take the snapshot today, and we might take it later on. What's the snapshot of the business on December 31st? Okay. What's the list of their assets? What's the list of their liabilities? Who do they owe money to? What stake do the shareholders have in the business? How much, what is the state of the balance of their loan? Okay. And then we have other types of reports. This is one type of report that takes pictures at a certain point in time. And then we have other reports that report what's gone on and summarize activities over a period of time. Okay, so from September the 9th, 2010 to December the 31st, 2010, how many sales were made in that time period? Okay, this is a little timeline I've made, by the way. So from this point to that point, what are the total amount of the sales? What about the expenses? And what did we pay out or incur? That's a better term for it. Okay. And so what we do in accounting is record any economic event, from one period of time to another period of time, and report and summarize all of that. Okay. All right, so two various types of reports based on the objective. Okay, so we've got financial statements that can address all of this. Okay. We've got the income statement, that's one, and that is a summary of revenue and expenses for a specific period of time. Okay. So we ask Bank of Montreal, how well did you do? And they will list out for us all of their sales and expenses. Let me take one good look at it, if I can. DNA. Notes, notes, notes. It's hard just to get to the statement of income here. But they will list out all of their income, all of their revenue. And they're getting income essentially from investment sources, right? So interest, dividend, and fee income. Right? And then they've got interest expense. Right? So it's just a listing. That's all that an income statement is. Where did their revenue come from? Where do all their expenses? And it's broken down into all these little categories. Interest expense on deposits, subordinated debt. And then to come down to the bottom line here of net income. Okay, if you take all the revenues, subtract out all the expenses, how much money did we make? Okay, and so for this particular year, it's all in millions. Whoa. So $2,663,000,000. That's just mind-boggling. Banks make a lot of money, by the way. Whoa. So that's the question that an income statement answers. How much money did we make? And that's why shareholders are really interested in that. Because they know if they've got great income, net income, on their income statement, most likely a dividend is coming. Remember what a dividend is? A dividend is a return of the profits because you're a shareholder. You might get something like $1 a share, That's how it's stated too. They declare dividends. It's a portion of the profits, okay, that can come back to the owners, the shareholders. So the shareholders really interested in that income statement. And it's over a specific period of time. It's from September 9th to December the 31st, or for the year ended, or for a particular month. Could be for a quarter. Retained earnings statement. This is a summary of changes in retained earnings. Now there's another term here we have to add to our list of vocabulary words. Retained earnings. This is all of the income, the accumulation of net income since incorporation. Imagine that. A company makes net income year after year, kind of like the banks. And we accumulate that in a special place. It's called retained earnings. Right? So since incorporation. And from that, we're going to subtract out dividends. So essentially, how much of the earnings have been retained in the business? Got all of this net income coming in year after year, starts to accumulate. We give a little bit out to the owners and shareholders every year as dividends. So what's retained? What's left in the business? Retained earnings. And so that statement is generally, it's over a specific period of time as well. Another financial statement we'll be looking at is a balance sheet, just a listing. It's that snapshot picture. Okay, so we talked about that being one of the objectives in the last slide. What is the financial condition? It answers that question. What's the financial condition of a business as at September 9th? Okay, let's list all of the assets. What's of economic benefit? That's what an asset is of the business. And we're also going to list all the liabilities. Who do they owe money to? Okay. Is it the bank? Is it the creditors? So here's the balance sheet for Bank of Montreal. Right? All we're doing here is listing assets. Okay, they've got some cash. Surprise. They've got investments. Okay. And then they've also listed here their liabilities. Okay. So who do they owe money to? Okay. And then they also list the shareholders' equity. Okay. So basically, assets are on one side. I don't know if you can tell that. It's really small. It's one half of the balance sheet is assets. 319,978 million. And then from that, they're going to list out who's got claim on those assets. And that's the section below it. Okay. So a certain amount of people have got claims, creditors, other banks. And the other people who've got claim on these assets are the shareholders themselves. Okay. So that's listed there as well. And it's very much date specific. It's financial condition as a period in time. The last statement, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it in this whole course, is a statement of cash flows. Okay. This is actually the only chapter where I'll talk about it. It's a summary of cash receipts and cash payments for a specific period of time. Why would we need this? You'd think that income statement, statement of retained earnings, balance sheet should answer most people's questions, okay, about the financial health of a business, but it doesn't. Okay, what we really need to know is a little bit more about the cash flow. Where's the cash coming in and where is it going out? Because you can report a whole lot of revenue and not necessarily receive $1 of cash. That can happen. Imagine if you made all of your sales on credit, nobody ever paid you. You'd have a hard time surviving. And so this is a relatively new statement that's come out in the last few decades anyway. And it just shows that cash flow, because that is going to be the number one indicator of a business. How much cash do they have? Can they make payroll next week and pay their suppliers next month? Right? And that's what this statement focuses on. Right. So we've taken a broad, high-level look at Bank of Montreal's financial statements. We can also take a look here at the Hershey Company. Okay? And this comes straight out of your textbook, actually. I scanned in Exhibit 6. So we got Hershey Company, their income statement, right? And the title is very important. You'll be asked to prepare financial statements like this for assignments, for the midterm. And there is marks given to these first three lines. I have to say that. The name of the company, okay, must always go first, followed by the name of the statement. All right? And then we have to be really specific about the reporting period here. for the year ended December 31st, 2008, and that all the dollars here are in millions. Okay, so it's over a period of time. We accumulate sales, we accumulate expenses from one point in time to another. That's what they're saying. So let's take a look at Hershey Company. They've had sales revenue here of, that would be $5,133,000,000. Okay. So, because all the amounts are in millions. And then they had a number of expenses. Okay. Cost of sales. It's interesting. Sometimes you might see on some financial statement the words cost of goods sold. That's another term for it. What is all the cost of the chocolate bars that Hershey sold for this time period? Now, Hershey is a manufacturer. Okay, they make chocolate bars, right? Hershey Company. And so there are certain costs in making the chocolate bars. And so this line reports what is the cost of all of the chocolate bars that they made, that were sold. So some businesses call this cost of sales. Some of them call it cost of goods sold. It's the same thing. They also had some selling and admin expenses. Okay, most likely some salaries, some rent. It's hard to tell, eh? I love that catch-all term, selling and admin. Well, that's a big category. You know? What you find on these public financial statements anyway is that they are putting together a whole lot of expenses. Utilities are probably in there too. You know, whole advertising would be in there. So, but they're not going to break it down for you more than this. Interest, generally, we have to report this separately. Okay, it's a separate line. So they probably have loans or bonds that they've issued, and they have to show interest expense on that. Income tax is also generally reported separately. Okay, so that's a fact of life, unfortunately, in many countries, income taxes and other that doesn't fit anywhere else. So after we take expenses, subtract revenue, we get net income. This company is profitable. If I'm a shareholder, I'm probably happy about this. Okay, $311 million. The big thing about the income statement is that we use the matching principle, this matching concept. In Canada, we call it a principle. The expenses must be matched against the revenues of the same period. Okay? So I want to advertise, okay, in the Citizen today, right? Then I will record that as an expense today because it's generating sales today. Okay? But let's say I want to pay for an ad in the Citizen that won't be published until next year sometime. I'm not going to record it on my income statement today. Okay, because it's not, that expense is not giving rise to income today. It's not going to give rise to sales until next year. Okay? So that's what the matching concept says. Expenses for the period are matched against the revenues for the same period. If you're paying an expense where the revenue won't be generated for some time, then that expense won't be recorded as an expense till that time period. Okay, so there's our very complicated formula here for the income statement. Revenue less expenses equals net income. So I was saying, your calculator just has to be basic in this class. No fanciness going on here. Add, subtract, multiply, divide, and there you go. We're subtracting, right? Great. So let's practice on that one, shall we? So this is generally what I do. I like to scan in the portions of the textbook problems that I'm using, okay, in class, so you don't have to lug your textbook with you. It's heavy, okay? So if I take up a problem, I will generally scan that problem right into the lecture notes, okay, so that you don't have to follow along in your big, heavy textbook. So this is an exercise from the back of the book. Oh, thank you, Kevin. He is. See, somebody does all this for me. I don't have to do it. It's wonderful. Idlewild Services was organized on August the 1st, 2010. A summary of the revenue and expense transactions for August follow. And we're given some accounts. We call these accounts. Okay? We've summarized them according to broad categories. Okay? And so we're told prepare an income statement for the month ended August the 31st. Okay. Now, does anybody remember what's generally the first thing on our income statement? First line, it's worth something. Name of the company, yes. It's always worth something. And all of my marking keys and other accounting instructors' marking keys, we always put something for the header, the heading. What's the next line? Income statement. You guys are quick. All right. The tricky one is the next line, I have to say. For the month ended. Yeah. It's usually for a time period ended. If you would say here, just August 31st or as at August 31st, I'm not going to give you full marks. Okay, so that's the format. So I get asked, how do I know? Okay, well, this is going to have to be one of those things you memorize. Okay, just the heading, right, and the format. But I can tell you, after doing a whole lot of income statements, it'll just become second nature. You'll remember, oh yes, I must put the heading this order. And the format of the income statement must appear as. Okay. So what is the format? Expenses and revenues. And we generally start with revenues. Okay. So I'm just going to go back one slide. Sorry to make you dizzy here. But there's Hershey, and so revenues. And then they've got their revenue type of accounts. The accounts just a mechanism to summarizing things. Okay. So of all of these things listed here, which one do you think would be revenues? Fees earned, yes, very good. Okay, somebody's taken high school accounting. Who's taken high school accounting? Oh, I knew it. Okay, it's not a prerequisite, just so you know. So the other people didn't put up their hand or going, oh my God, look at all those people who just put up their hands and I don't know anything about this. It's okay. I'm taking it from assuming no accounting knowledge, all right? They know a little bit, that's good. But I'm assuming that you know nothing about accounting. Okay? So this is just fees earned. Now I will caution you, if you have taken high school accounting, you've probably spent an awful lot of time putting fingers and lining columns up, right? I don't do that, all right? Do I give marks of, you know, this is 2 fingers and then, you know, there's a dollar sign here? No. Like I told you, what matters to me is that you have these first 3 lines, and if you don't center them, that's fine too. I'm okay with that. I don't care if fees earned is indented. Okay, it means nothing to me. But the fact that you've written somewhere revenues and fees earned means something to me. That's about it. And I'd be just ecstatic if you had the number down. Do the numbers have to be lined up in pretty columns? No. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I know your accounting teachers are watching and they're shuddering. Actually, I had an accounting in high school teacher phone me last year when I first started teaching this course on CUTV saying, I can't believe, anyway, you said this. Anyway. And then one of my daughters took high school accounting and she said, Mom, I can't possibly take accounting in university because you're all worried about the format. And I said, I'm not worried about the format. I don't care about indenting and lines, and don't worry about it. Just put it down. That's all that matters to me. Okay, so we list all the expenses. Maybe I didn't go into that. I talked a little bit more about expenses here in Hershey. And it's what we've received the benefit of, okay, to generate those sales. I mentioned matching concept, okay, matching principle. And how do we know their expenses? Well, big test is they probably have the word expense beside it, okay. The other thing is we've received the benefit of it within that period. Okay, it's given rise to some sales. So if I take a look here at the list of accounts, but setting it all off, how do I know what's an expense? It's got the word expense listed at the end of it. But they're generally things that we use up, right? Or we have to pay, but we don't necessarily have to have paid them, by the way. Things like wages, we pay for our employees' salaries. I did think I mentioned that in the last slide. Or rent, or advertising, or utilities, and that sort of thing. Okay. And the actual textbook definition, I've read this somewhere, of an expense is an asset that you've used up, okay, or something you've received the benefit of. Okay. So, how do I know what to list here? Well, it does say wages expense after all. Miscellaneous expense. Rent expense. And supplies expense. Now, here I go. I'm going to put these in a separate column. Is it necessary? No. I'd be so happy if you could just recognize what is an expense and what goes where on an income statement. All right. How did they do it? Oh yeah, there's no one standard format for, this is what Hershey's looks like, but is it the way that it looks like for all of them? No. Even these accounts that are listed here for Hershey's decided on these accounts, selling admin, interest, etc. But does everybody do those accounts? No. And that way of summarizing and reporting? No. It's up to the business. I can tell you my income statement has a lot more lines on it than this. I don't like to summarize so much. I like to be as transparent as possible. Okay. So I'm going to add that up. Okay, so all I'm doing is adding up all the expenses. I'm going to put it over here in this column. And then I'm going to calculate net income. There we go. Right, so I'm getting 352. Right, which is good. Sounds like they're profitable. Okay. We're going to take a look at this more critically in another chapter, by the way. Like, is this, adequate? What's the trend? What percentage is net income of sales? We'll look at a whole lot of things, to interpret this and to be just a little bit, have that critical eye, just a little bit more. Any questions on the income statement? Okay. And you can do your own personal income statement too, right? I made so much money this year from my part-time job or my full-time summer job. I had expenses. I had to pay for tuition. I had to pay for books. They overcharged me on the book at the bookstore, whatever. I have pizza, I have lunch. I want to go have pizza at lunch. We could have our own personal income statement and figure out how much money did we make this month or this year or this quarter. All right. Next up, this is the statement of retained earnings. Oh, and what a concept to introduce on the first day. So, retained earnings. I think I mentioned in a previous slide, I know I entered it on a previous slide, is that accumulation. What is retained earnings? Accumulation of net income since incorporation less dividends. Okay. And so what this is going to be in terms of a statement is just, well, here's the balance we started with. We're going to add net income for the year and subtract dividends for the year to come up with our new balance. Okay? That's all that we're doing. So for Hershey Company, we're tracking, net income for the year. Certainly, we're going to list dividends for the year, but we're just taking what was the balance at the beginning of the year. We're going to add net income to that, subtract out dividends. Okay? Remember what dividends are? We've given a little bit of the profit, the net income, to the shareholders. Okay, we're going to get some increase here. And now here's our new balance in retained earnings. Okay, and we're going to hopefully keep accumulating it. This always sort of begs the question, what happens if a company loses money? Okay, you're going to subtract that from retained earnings. And hopefully you didn't declare dividends in a year of a loss. Anyway. So report the changes in financial condition. There's your textbook definition. Due to changes in retained earnings during the year. And it's the portion of net income retained by the business. All right, well, that sounds great. It's kind of like that, like a surplus. Like we just continue to hopefully accumulate surplus and keep the earnings in the business. Okay. So in terms of, okay, if I ask you a retained earnings statement, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to memorize the format. Okay, at first. As you do more of them, become a lot easier. Okay? So always, always, always a heading. Okay? The name of the company, always the first line. The name of the statement, always the second line. And then we have to be pretty specific here. For this statement, it's over a period of time. We're accumulating, increasing retained earnings for the year ended December the 31st. Okay? That is really critical, you get that part. And then like I mentioned, we'll just have to memorize the format after this. What's the beginning balance? Add net income. Subtract out dividends. What's our ending balance? Okay. Fairly straightforward. Let's try one out. Financial information relating to In Good Taste Company for the month ended April 30th is as follows. We're given net income, dividends, retained earnings on April the 1st. Prepare a retained earnings statement for the month ended April the 30th. What's first? In good taste, yes. The name. What's next? Retained earnings statement? Yes, it's that difficult. A little bit more complicated. What's the next line? Yes? Perfect. For the month ended April 30th, 2010. Again, I do give marks for that. Do I care if it's entered? No. And the format, that is just something to memorize by and large. Okay. So what is retained earnings at the beginning of the period? In this case, April 1st. Well, I do believe they've given that to us. What's next? Yes? Add net income, right. So the answers are coming as freely as they once have. The reason is that when you took high school accounting, you probably took proprietorships or partnerships, right? Did anybody take corporate form of business in their high school accounting? One. Okay. And maybe a few people are not quite sure. I do focus on the corporate form, so this is why it's probably a new term for a few of you. What is retained earnings? And I will not be talking about proprietorships or partnerships at all. So these are the financial statements that we see for a corporation. Net income. We got one item left. I guess it would have to be dividends. I'm not going to do that little subtotal thing that they did for Hershey. I'm just going to keep it like this. There we go, 502. So it's increased. Fantastic. It's a sign of financial health. Any question on the retained earnings statements? We're good. Good. This next one is pretty big. Okay, the balance sheet. Actually, we know that balance sheets have been around for a long time. I'm just going to take a little segue here. The first documented evidence that balance sheets were ever being prepared was 500 years ago. Okay, and it was only because somebody was documenting a system in existence in Italy at the time. Right? So there's this monk who, the printing press had just been invented, and so he thought he would write down all of this knowledge somewhere. So he wrote about a balance sheet, okay? And he was the first person, and I don't know why this has happened, but it has not wrapped around my accounting equation here. He was the first person to document this accounting equation, which has been blocked out, but not on my screen. So assets equals liabilities plus, and what's hiding here is shareholders' equity. Okay. So this Italian monk said we should list out all of our assets, okay, and we should then show the claims to those assets. So on the other side of the equal sign, we have liabilities. Who do we owe money to? Okay, the creditors' claims on the liabilities, and then the owner's claims on the liabilities, shareholders' equity. So, and I don't know why this has not printed out the way I wanted it to. Anyway, what I mean to say here, it reports the financial condition at a point in time, and we measured by total assets and claims to the assets. I know it's rather small there, but we do see for Hershey that they've got a lot of things that are considered assets. Okay, some things of economic benefit, right? Cash, always a good one to have on hand. Accounts receivable, what does that mean? It means that they've got customers who owe them money. They've sold chocolate bars to somebody, and they still haven't paid yet. So that is considered an asset of a business. They're eventually going to collect. They're going to turn it into cash. And, that speaks to the liquidity of the company. There's money that's about to be coming in. Okay? They also have inventories. They've got a whole lot of unsold chocolate bars somewhere, okay, that they can use. It's something of benefit to them. They can turn around and sell it. That's a benefit to them. They own these things, inventories. They've paid for some expenses in advance. That's what we mean there by prepaid expenses. Okay, so they paid for advertising for next year's Citizen, okay, or for in a magazine somewhere, all right, but in a future issue of it. Or maybe they paid for rent the last month of their lease somewhere, right? That's a prepaid expense. We're not going to show it as an expense just yet, but eventually we will. Until then, it's an asset to us. Okay, so we're going to record that there. Yeah, what's not appearing is the shareholders' equity. That's funny because I'm looking at my printout of it and it's completely different. Yeah, this isn't appearing properly. All right. So prepaid expenses, we consider those an asset. Property, plant, and equipment. So they own factories. That's the next line. Okay, they own some trucks, some delivery trucks maybe. Maybe they own the land. All the properties that they own, their head office perhaps, they own that building. Okay, the chocolate making equipment, whatnot. They're listing all of that down. They're saying that is of use to us. Intangibles, I think I've mentioned this before. Some assets can't touch or feel. So maybe they've patented some invention of theirs or a recipe or copyrighted a recipe or something. I don't know what they would do, but they've got some intangible assets and other assets. So there's their total assets. Okay, what they're going to do on the balance sheet is say, there's all the great stuff that we own, we control, okay, and that's of benefit to us or future benefit to us. Okay? Now, who's got claim to these assets? Well, we're going to list that under liabilities. Okay. The first thing that they've listed is accounts payable. What does that mean? That means they owe money now. Probably to suppliers. So, whatever, the sugar supplier, because I know there's sugar in a chocolate bar. They said, I'll take your sugar and we'll pay you later. And what they're doing is they're recording that pay you later portion as a liability. Okay, we call that accounts payable. Accrued liabilities, very similar to accounts payable. I mean, they know that they're eventually going to have to pay something, and they're making an allowance here for it on their books. Notes and other debt. Let's take a look at that. Notes, what they're most likely referring to there is a promissory note, an IOU. I promise to pay somebody some money. Okay? And you generally sign a note if you're borrowing from a bank. Right? Sign a promissory note and other debt. So that's by far their largest there. They owe some money also to government, income taxes payable. You see that word payable? You know it's a liability. Okay? They tend to go together. Now, this is an American book, and for whatever reason, they call the next section stockholders' equity. I call it shareholders' equity. Okay? I do that repeatedly, and I find it's a more Canadian type word. And they're calling their first line under stockholders' equity. Remember, this is the owner's claim on the assets. The first line that there's capital stock. So what does that mean? It means how much did the original owner of these shiny share certificates pay, okay, and give to Hershey. Okay? So when they first initially offered up their shares, okay, how much was the total that they received, okay, on that initial share offering? They probably had other share offerings since, but how much have they received? There is an aftermarket for this shiny share certificate. Okay, if Hershey gave me the share, I might sell it to somebody else, and that generally occurs in the stock market. Okay. All right, so we've got the owner's claim on the asset represented by this capital stock item, meaning how much money did they get when they first issued the shares. They also have retained earnings. We know an awful lot about retained earnings. We just talked about that in the last financial statement. And I'm not going to at all get into the repurchased capital stock and other equity items. No, we don't need to know about that. That is outside the scope of this course. So we've got assets, we've got claim to those assets. So of all of the $3.6 billion here, they owe their suppliers $3,285 million. Do you consider that a lot, by the way, if we just take a look at this critically? Imagine this was your own personal balance sheet. You had $3 billion worth of assets, over $3 billion, $3.6 billion, and you owed your suppliers $3.2 billion. You owed your suppliers and/or bank $3.2 billion. Would you feel comfortable? It's kind of on the high side, eh? That's awfully high, I think. But we're going to get to that in another chapter. The owner's claim on those assets only amounts up to $350 million. So I say this company is highly leveraged. Thanks. All right. And so, companies are doing this. They're showing balance sheet, right? And that illustrates what we call the accounting equation. There's my accounting equation. Assets equals liabilities plus equity. You can also do this personally. What sort of assets do you have? Anybody have any assets here? Clothes, yeah. That's good. That's a future benefit for sure. You have some cash, good. I don't. Gold. You've got gold. Furniture, yes. Do you have a bike? Anybody have a bike? It costs money. You're using it, right, to generate car. Wow. Appliances. Look at that. So you guys are just loaded. Look at that. Stocks, bonds, whatever. But we can do this personally, is what I'm saying. Okay, list all of our assets. Now, who do you owe money to? School. Anybody have a student loan? Yeah, they're saying there's more students now with student loan parents. There is. Yeah. $5 for a slice of pizza. Okay. Credit cards, yes. Yeah, and I do see those companies on campus trying to issue credit cards to students. Yeah.
Do you think it's worth, for a small business that do you think it's worth it for them to get credit? Offer credit for their customers?
Oh, credit for their customers. Yeah, that if somebody owes you money, that's an asset. Yeah, and sometimes that just helps facilitate business, right? If you offer credit terms, yeah. So, but buying something and paying later is essentially what liabilities are. So any of your creditors. So if you've got your apartment, okay, and it's September the 9th after all, and you haven't paid rent, your landlord. So who haven't you paid yet? Okay, so you might owe your rent for the month of September. Maybe some of you are in arrears for income tax. I don't know. All right. And whatever's left is your stake of your assets. Okay. So that's equity, by the way. And so your claim on your assets. When we do this for a person or even for a nonprofit, we call this net assets. Just meaning, what's your net worth? Okay, that's what that means. So calculate that. What's your net worth? After I take all my assets, subtract out all my liabilities, what's left? Not much. I know that feeling. So, yeah, that's what we can do even personally, right? Businesses do it because they need to be able to manage all of this. I know I prepare these every month for Agricultural Institute and the Horticultural Council, and they're going through it with a fine-tooth comb. How much has Patty collected all the receivables yet? Okay, so accounts receivable. It's generally my job to collect. Although I try to get other people to do that. Get the bookkeeper at one of them to phone and harass and fax for collecting all of that. And they want to know how much cash do they have. Okay, they need to know this monthly basis. Okay, how much do they owe their suppliers? Need to know that. Okay, these are generally the big items on a balance sheet that stand out. All right, let's prepare one here, or at least identify those that would appear on the balance sheet. So from the following list of selected items taken from the records of Metro Appliance Services as of a specific date, identify those that would appear on the balance sheet. All right. So you know everything, right, that there is to know about balance sheets and income statements and statements of retained earnings. Where does accounts payable go? Does it go on the balance sheet? Yes. Yes. Identify those that would appear on the balance sheet. Accounts payable for certain. Yes. What about capital stock? Yes. Yeah. It goes under the shareholders' equity section, or as the textbook refers to it, stockholders' equity. Does cash belong on the balance sheet? Yeah, it's an asset too. Very good. Fees earned. No. Does land belong on it? Yes. Right. Salaries expense? Nope. Salaries payable? Yes. Yeah. And remember I told you that word payable goes with liabilities. We owe somebody money. We have to pay them. Does supplies belong on the balance sheet? Yeah, it does. Yeah. Supplies expense, though? No. That sort of brings up the question, what's the difference between supplies and supplies expense? So if you can imagine, we've got office supplies, or even personally, going back to this personal balance sheet, you've got supplies in your kitchen cupboard, right? And then you use them up. Or you've got food, let's say, and then you use it up. As you're using it up, it becomes supplies expense. Yeah, it's used in generating revenue for the business here. What about utilities expense? Belong in the balance sheet? No. No. All right, so the next exercise, it's the same as the presented here, data presented in exercise 110. Identify those that would appear in the income statement. So then we'll take a look at all the ones we put an X beside. Does fees earned belong in the income statement? Yes, we saw that in the one that we made up. Salaries expense? Yeah. How about that? What doesn't appear on the balance sheet in this list appears on the income statement. All right. Any questions on that? Good. It's all clear. All right. Now we get to identify, is it an asset, liability, revenue, expense, or dividend? Wow. Now we've seen all of these in various slides. Amount due from customers. Is that an asset, a liability, revenue, expense, or dividend? Yeah, it is an asset. Now, I'm always going to get asked, but how do I know? Go back to the definition of these things. Okay, an asset is something that you hold that is of some future use or economic benefit to you. Okay, and think back, what is your own list of assets? Okay, or what is a typical business list of assets? Amounts due from customers, we call that accounts receivable, by the way. That can be converted into cash. That's an asset. Okay. So go back, like I say, to the definition. Asset, something we control for future economic benefit. Liability, money we owe. That's pretty straightforward. Revenue, what sort of sales or revenue are we generating? Expense generally has the word expense beside it, but it's also something we've used up or received the benefit. Dividend, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. So amounts owed vendors, where does that fit? Liability, eh? Yeah. B, a liability. Cash on hand. Asset, yeah. For all of us, even on our personal balance sheet, should have some amount of cash. Cash paid to stockholders. Yeah, that's by definition what it is, eh? Cash sales. Revenue, right. See the word sales too. Well, that means to me revenue. Okay. Equipment. Assets, yeah. Something that we control, or not necessarily own actually, that we can have some sort of future benefit of. Okay. And a lot of you listed equipment type things there, bike, car, furniture, appliances, in your list of personal assets. Note payable owed to the bank. Liability. How do we know? Well, I see the word owed, so I know it's a liability. I also see the word payable. All right, so there are some key words telling me, screaming, liability. Rent paid for the month. Expense. And you'd have to say it'd have to be the current month, for it to be an expense. You have to receive the benefit of it within that period of time to generate sales in that period of time. Sales commissions paid to salespersons. Expense. Right. It's kind of like wages, eh? Yeah, there's wages. Here, I gave it away. That's an expense too. Okay. So yeah, the thing with this to identify is it asset, liability, et cetera, is to go back to that definition. Statement of cash flows. This is probably all the coverage I'm going to give on the statement of cash flows. We've taken it out of this course almost completely, but it does answer the question, where are you getting your money from and where is it going to? Okay, so we divide it into 3 different sections, actually. Cash flows from operating activities. Remember that graphic I had of Victor Newman, Young and the Restless there? So what cash is coming in from his normal, regular business, his regular line of business. Okay? All of his sales, less his operating type expenses from his regular line of business. How much cash came in from that? So for Hershey, this is $520 million, which is actually quite good. It's good that it's positive. Investing activities, what we're concerned with here are all of the assets, long-term assets that we're investing in. So they sold off some property, plant, and equipment, and then they bought some new stuff, new property, plant, and equipment. Okay, so that's going to go in that section. Then the next section, financing. Where did you get your big outlay, big chunks of cash from? Is it liabilities? Is it a new share issue? Okay. So, you know, debt. Did you pay any dividends to stockholders? That all goes in this section. So what you do actually is you figure out at the end of the day, what was the net increase or decrease in cash during the year? You put brackets around it because it's a decrease. That's what that means. And then you can reconcile how much your cash is at the end of the year. Okay? You add it to your beginning balance. That's all the coverage I'm going to put on statement of cash flows. That's about it. These financial statements, I don't know if you noticed, but they are all related. Okay? That net income we saw in the income statement of $311 million, we used it in the statement of retained earnings, that retained earnings statement, in order to calculate the new balance of retained earnings. Okay. That generally means then, you've got to do that statement first, income statement first. Retained earnings statement, that'll have to be done second, because they're all related. Then we used our updated retained earnings to prepare our balance sheet. Okay. The other thing that we needed for the balance sheet was a statement of cash flows. We took that ending cash balance, okay, $37, and that's being reported, $37 million, being reported on the balance sheet as well. So generally it has to work like that. I'm not going to be spending a lot of time on the statement of cash flows, so I'm just going to say prepare balance sheet next. I'm not going to have you prepare a statement of cash flows actually, ever. Just know what it is. Okay? So you have to do them in that order because they are all interrelated. If you don't, you're going to have a hard time preparing the balance sheet without knowing all of your other bits and pieces. Okay. The following financial data were adapted from the annual report of Best Buy. What do we have to do here? Income statement, statement of retained earnings, and a balance sheet. I'm not going to have enough time to complete that before the end of class. This is a long problem, by the way. Can I have you guys do this problem, and then we're going to take it up in class next week? Okay? Does that sound reasonable? All right. And so let me just finish up the chapter by saying that there are accounting rules that are generally specific to a country, but we're getting a little bit away from that. Okay? Every country sets their own generally accepted accounting principles. Okay? We call it GAAP. And it's set by the Canadian Institute of Chartered Accountants at the end of the day. And they publish them, although they used to publish them all the time in a handbook like this. Okay? It's my CICA handbook. But more often than not, people go online to get the big rule book. And it tells you, what should you include as an asset? What's a test for asset impairment? And what do you record as a liability? And how do you record revenue? And when do you know when to recognize an expense? It goes through all of the rules. Okay? And we've had a very Canadian-specific rule book forever. And it's largely based on the British system, generally. The U.S. has had their own. Okay, so this is the CICA handbook. Now, we still have our own handbook, but we're trying to become more harmonized with the rest of the world. We're adopting what's called International Financial Reporting Standards, which isn't going to have a very big bearing on this course because we're very introductory. But if you continue your career in accounting, you will have to get to know the International Financial Reporting Standards. All right. And in order to figure out what guides our rule book, there are 8 concepts, or principles anyway, that guide our thinking. Right? One of them is accounting period. We prepare financial statements for a period of time or as at a period in time, generally. And information is generally summarized into periods of time. That's what that means. Business entity. We prepare financial statements for a business. Okay, so for Hershey Company, and that is separate from Hershey's shareholders. Okay? And we prepare the balance sheet of the Bank of Montreal, which is separate from the balance sheet of the shareholders of the Bank of Montreal. Okay? It's the business entity concept. Cost concept, what that means is that we generally record assets at their cost, their laid down price. Okay? But we're getting away from that one as well. We're finding something a little bit more relevant, like market. Going concern, what that means is we assume businesses are going to stay in business, in operation, for the foreseeable future. If we didn't adopt the going concern concept, we would record assets as something quite different. We probably want to look at recording them at their value of distressed selling, that sort of thing. Matching concept, I've mentioned. That's where you match your expense to your revenue. Okay. Objectivity concept. Your assets should be verifiable and based on objective information. Okay. Now, some companies have had trouble with this verifiable aspect, and they've actually disclosed misleading financial statements, but that's a topic for another day. Unit of measure, we use the dollar. Okay. In Canada anyway, and that's how we record things, is in dollars. In adequate disclosure, everybody should have enough information. All of our stakeholders or users of financial information should have enough information from the set of financial statements in order to make their decisions. Okay? If not, we haven't done our job. All right. And that is the end of chapter 1. And I will see you next week, next Thursday. Having completed that problem, okay, we'll cover chapters 2 and 3. Have a good week. Have a good weekend.